ESS Podcast is back. I'm your host, Ashley Marie, here with special guest writer and director, Neil Davenport. Today, he's going to be covering a little bit about script writing and how he has fluxed through the industry and the mass amount of industry changes and things like that as well. So, Neil, it's really good to have you here in the studio with us. How's life going for you right now?
Oh, thank you for having me. Life, it's exciting. My given what is going on in this industry, the dry spell and whatnot. My fear is on parallel with my excitement of what is to come and how to navigate it appropriately. But so overall, I got up, I was live, I had coffee. Life is good.
You know what's funny is I have a connection who is always like, well, I woke up this morning, so I'm good. And sometimes in life, it's like, that's about as good as it's going to get. So like, you know what? We're going to take it. We woke up and life is good. So that's why we're going to roll with that. So Neil, you've had a lot of really cool experience. You've been in the industry for over 5 years. And you have started out with a bunch of really cool backgrounds, working with some really great people, Christopher Lloyd and a bunch of other Corbin Blue, cool people. So you got into writing, script writing, screenwriting, and what was the inspiration behind that? Tell us a little bit of like how you got started, a little bit about you, and why you chose to go into screenwriting.
Yeah, the best way I can put it is to say that screenwriting chose me. I grew up in black box theater, so being an actor, being on stage, being creative was in my blood. And at first, I thought I wanted to be a Broadway actor. And then when I started directing plays, I was like, oh, this is a new type of love within the same field. And then producing plays, thoroughly enjoyed that much more than directing. And I started to shift my perspective and my love of artistry to film. And I'll never forget this moment. I was 16 years old, and I told my dad, who at the time was an airplane mechanic, and that I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And he was there, at the computer doing his thing. He was in the zone. And I said, Dad, I know what I want to do as a career. And he says, great, son, what? And I said, I want to be a director for movies. And he went, great. What? and I love my dad. Because right after that, he emailed Rich Peluso, who is the VP of Affirm Films, and faith-based oriented feature content. And with growing up in a Christian household, that's what we consumed for media. And my dad basically emailed him and went, look, I have a teenager who wants to make movies. I'm a mechanic. I don't know how to coach him. Help. And then, Rich emailed back and said, hey, next time you're in the area, let's have lunch. And so like the next day, the following weekend, we all dressed up in our Sunday best and had lunch with this guy. And it was just remarkable because whereas anyone else would have seen a teenager with obscure dreams, he treated me like an adult. He treated me like a professional at that table. And I'll never forget it. He said, Neil, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to direct. And he went, okay, what have you directed? And I went, that's a great point. That's a good question. And he says, okay, well, given that you haven't had much to direct, what else do you do in your free time that you enjoy? And I said, well, I love to write. And I even had a booklet, a journal with me that had like stories in it that I developed. And he says, okay, you're not a director, you're a writer. And, that was a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, he called it. He was spot on. And as soon as I started to listen to him and allow myself to follow that guidance years later, I started obtaining a sense of uh, peace within this industry. Um, because it fluctuates, it's ups and downs, it has peaks and valleys. Um, and as long as you're following your heart and you know what it is you're born to do with this within this field, then I think that's vital. You find your sense of peace within it and what you're supposed to do within it. And so that's what I've been. I'm uh, have found myself gradually moving or shifting toward producing more so because of my writing. So yeah, that's kind of a bit on how I got to where I am.
I love that. And I think that's a really great segue into like where the industry is going now.
Mm.
Because you have really taken that with stride compared to, like some others. And honestly, like what does that even look like? I think a lot of people that are in the industry have like that job stacking. I'm really thankful that your dad reached out to, going back there really quick. I think it's really cool that your dad reached out and asked for help and was like really, very sweet and humble about it, just saying like, listen, I'm a mechanic and apparently you sail too. And you guys, that's not my world. Like, what does that even look like? And I think
Yeah,
that was really smart for him to get you guys connected, know that you have some talent there and help you to get to where you need to be the fastest as
sure,
possible.
sure. Well, I think I read something about Danny Weiner recently, the CEO of Hexclad Cookware,
Yeah.
and he's quoted to say, "When you ask for help, it." I'm going to butcher the quote, and I'm sorry about this, but it basically goes, uh, you're able to get from point A to point B quicker when you ask for help, and that's I live by that. I don't have any qualms or insecurities about asking for help, um, because that's all we're here to do is help one another out in however we can. I do I have my own ideas? Sure. Do I want those ideas to be manifested and hopefully emotionally impact the lives of others? Sure. But where I get the most fulfillment right now is being able to step into the room and meet someone that I believe in, hear about what they're doing, and go, how can I help you get your project to the next level? What resource can I provide you to help you or your project get to the next stage of development, if you will? And I might not be able to offer much right now, but by God, I will come across someone or something, and then forward them accordingly. So it was very gracious of my dad to do that for me. He's constantly been a unit of support for me, as well as my mother. My a little short story is that when I graduated with my undergrad in 2016, I made the mistake of only applying to one grad school and inevitably was not accepted. And so they moved to a completely different state. And because I didn't have any other uh, avenues to pursue at the time, I had to move in with them and literally sleep on their couch for months and to find work. And so I hit a wave of depression. Um, and my mom got tired of me wallowing. So she wrote me a contract that basically stated that I would find work in my industry in whatever capacity within the next month, or I will go find a 9 to 5. And she lit a match under
Tough
my
love.
ass. I
Yeah.
mean, tough love,
Yeah.
absolutely. So and I keep telling her she needs to become my agent, because it's like, even now, when I'm doing deals and negotiation, I call her up and go, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Um,
Parents are great. Yeah.
because
Great
I mean,
agent.
it's just my family. It's like, that's one piece of advice that I always give aspiring artists who are about to step into this field. You know, because I don't believe in sexy advice. It's you can't go very far with sexy advice, but
No.
I believe in tangible, actionable advice. And so one of the pieces of advice that I like to give is make sure that your support team, whoever they are in your life and however they support you, understands how they can support you. And because I mean, look, being an artist is already a life full of doubt in of itself. So you need to be able to wake up every day going, okay, I don't know how I'm going to navigate, the industry and the business today, but I know, you know, my support team has my back and I can call upon them for whatever I need support with when I need it. So it's just, yeah, having that safety net, if support, if you will, is vital to navigating this place. Um, so yeah, that's just my family in a, in a nutshell. Because
Yeah,
I'm not
your
legacy.
family is a good support system. Like you have to have a support system if you're
Hmm.
gonna continue to go well in the industry, because there's a lot of hard knocks. I mean, it's a tough industry, and I don't think most people understand that. Because you have interactions with, I guess I sound like Harry Potter this way, but like the mortals, like the
Yeah,
real people of the world, right? And they're, like that. You get knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down. But this
sure.
industry, like the skin level of thickness that you need to have is a little bit thicker, I feel like. So yeah,
Yeah.
having that support system is great. Having parents that are gonna, kind of push you, even though they may not know anything about the industry,
Hmm.
they're willing to learn. They're willing to, go that extra distance to help you get there. I
Sure.
think it's really special. And
Sure.
it sounds like that's kind of the ways that they've also helped you train you to weather the industry of what you're doing right now.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
a good segue into how are you surviving through all of these changes? Like, tell
Sure.
us about that, Neil.
Sure. Day by day, day by
Yeah,
day,
for real.
um, step by step, even. Um, Look, I think it's important for me to note that I've been blessed to have the opportunity to afford to pursue this dream of mine. Um, because I'm not currently dealing with a lot of the issues that some other people, everybody is dealing with the same issues and additional issues. And, um, it's just a process of, I think, just good decision making over the span of time, learning from your mistakes, because Lord knows I have made mistakes and paid for them. But um,
I think
the
everybody has.
well, yeah, but the
Yeah.
thing is, that's this industry. That's the arts industry. You unfortunately have to. It's a trial by fire, and you won't know what not to do specifically until you make that mistake, and you either get a slap on your wrist for it or fired. Um, so the that's that's kind of the beauty of academia. Like if someone is pursuing this craft through academia, then that's really what academia was for me. That was the shift in perspective for me. Academia is this platform when you're studying film specifically, or theater, or whatever art. Um, it's this platform for you to make mistakes and for you to learn from them, so that you don't make the mistakes when you get into the professional field. And it's I think it was when I graduated, excuse me, when I was a part of grad school at UNCSA. I made a lot of mistakes, and I was recognized and called out for those mistakes, and went, oh wow, okay, that's a very valid point. I gotta put that one in the books, and hopefully become a better person because of it, a professional also because of it. Um, so yeah, navigating this industry currently. Um, Look, I mean, we're in a dry spell right now. I there's with all the major productions overseas and not in the States, employment has gone down significantly, which has caused a lot of voice frustration. Um, but I was talking to one of my friends and producers, Jason Brown, the one of the producers of Camp Hideout, and we were talking about pivoting, the topic about pivoting, and he said, it's really good for people to recognize that it's either you pivot or die, because no one, it's like the stock market. No one knows if it's going to go up or down or swivel into a black hole. I mean, all we have to go off of is uh, our data of the past, and make decisions accordingly. Um, and so the that's where I'm finding that's what I find that I am having to do alongside all these other professional artists that I'm meeting here in Georgia. We're all pivoting. We're all trying to figure out what's going to happen tomorrow, because, as you know, any news outlet that you read will show you everything is volatile right now. Everything is on pins and needles. Everything is subject to change, and on a dime, mind you. So, you know, make money where you can make money. Practice your craft where you can practice your craft, and when the industry comes back, which it will, in my opinion, then you'll be at a better point. Um, uh, Hopefully mentally and professionally, when work comes back around the bend.
That's really true, and really great points. I think that's a great word of wisdom. Pivot or die, and that's the way it is in any industry, from the technology industry, even all the way, just everything that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of uncertainties, and so I think that's some really great words of wisdom for everybody out there. You have to adjust AI and stuff like that. And we've had conversations about that. You got to be willing to adjust. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the end. It might be an end of a type of error, but it's going to morph to a different era,
Yeah,
like it's going to
yeah.
continue.
I,
It's
I
just, what does
think
that look like?
I think you bring up a very valid point. The kind of an end of an era almost, where I just based off of you know a multitude of things, um, where I see the industry going right now is in a form a regurgitation of the French New Wave.
Mm,
If you're familiar with the French New Wave, it was a time of cinema where creators were allowed to explore and experiment and take this medium, this traditional medium, um, and and twist it. Figure out what is its limits. What can we do with this celluloid content? What can we do with narrative? How can we bend the rules that have been grounded by the founding fathers of cinema? Um, and so what I mean by that is, when you look at like Francis Truffaut, for example, and films such as like Breathless and 400 the 400 Belows, Jules and Jim, it's like those what those films did, what those art house experimental films did, was allowed artists to become aware of uh, the evolution of storytelling and the technology of cinema. For example, prior to it, jump cuts were not a thing. Prior to the French New Wave, expository voiceover was not a thing. Non-linear editing was not a thing. It was prior to this, prior to the French New Wave, films were essentially like filming a play on stage, where everything was like had chronological elements to it. So how does the French New Wave resemble where we are at currently? Um, I think we're very much in an experimental time when it comes to the same elements. Um, it's but instead of playing around with the medium of story and uh, uh, the facets of creativity, I think you're seeing it with technology, the experimentation with technology. For example, verticals or micro dramas, as they're also called. Right now, those are the the pieces of content that are paying creatives. Um, I have several friends that are actors that would be normally working on features and television shows, but um, because that's not because the frequency rate of those projects are significantly low. Where they find work are in this new medium of verticals, and it is a completely different beast than feature development or episodic development. It's its own thing. When it you know uh, attaches soap opera like narratives to social media. Um, is it going to replace contemporary cinema? No, not at all. But it's just a new form of storytelling and a way to provide artists a paycheck at the end of the day. Um, so it's that's one form of experimentation. Another form of experimentation that we're seeing right now is AI, like you mentioned. We're it's still very much in its infancy, specifically within the film industry. But the capabilities that we are purview to of what it's able to do right now is incredible. Um, I mean, in after we're out of this experimental uh, contemporary French New Wave phase, then I think we'll be able to utilize these tools and go, okay, this is how we go forward from here. This is how we are able to tell new narratives and more authentic stories, and we have a sense of stability at this point to where we're able to make the money that we would like to make again. So that's just my opinion of where we're at. We're very much in an experimental phase. We're figuring out um, we're discovering new things, and with each new discovery there is fear that comes along with the unknown, but if we play around with it long enough and figure out where's the safety line, what line not to cross, then we'll be in a better spot than we are currently.
I love that. I think that was a really good kind of example. I mean, it just you summed it up very well for what is going on in the industry, and it isn't something to be afraid of. I love what you mentioned about like the French New Wave. I mean, that's such a great connection there with what we're going through right now. It's one of those things. Is it going to mean that um, what we know and have now is going to completely go away? I don't know, eventually, like potentially, but by that point, we're going to be morphing into something else. And that doesn't mean we're going to be giving up. Like you said, there's no way that we as creators are going to lose our platform to create. It's just going to morph and look different. And it's going to, be cool and awesome and is just as good as, prior projects.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. And speaking of prior
Well,
projects,
yeah,
oh,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
it's just like, I mean, you see trickles of evidence of this happening right now. It's like
Yeah.
there was a recent study that was published that gave very specific numbers about streaming services and
Yes.
how the predominant audience base are leaning more toward YouTube
Hmm.
than Netflix, Disney Plus, or Prime, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So it just goes, okay, we're leaning more toward authentic, homegrown content, and this is where things are somewhat shifting. This is where we choose to uh, place our attention and our money, and we're giving this certain thing power over us in some degree, and it's And you start, I think you start seeing certain narratives being shaped and certain content being shaped to fit this new demographic of attention, and addiction, if we're being honest. um, so it's just a very fascinating thing. And to your point earlier, I think where where the best place to be as a professional, whether you're aspiring or established, is to just continue being a student of your craft. I'm a student of my craft. I mean, I've been in the industry for 7 going on 8 years now, and I still have a lot to learn. I don't know everything, but I stay in tune. I whenever something, I follow my particular news sources, and I have conversations with industry professionals, and I connect I connect the invisible dots and make hypotheses. I think that's the right word to use that where there. But it's it's just, I have my goal, and um, I have my definition of success and what I would like to achieve in my lifetime within this career. And it's important for me to pay attention. It's important for people to simply be aware of what's going on and ask questions and dig at the answer, and just be a student at the end of the day, so that we're able to utilize particular information in order to figure out how to navigate forward.
Agreed. No, that's perfect. Yeah, you have to stay willing to learn and
Mhm.
to continue to grow, because otherwise, I've had a saying since, and I don't even know if I heard this from somebody or what, but my favorite saying that I created for myself, I think, is like, if you give up the rights to learn, you give up the right to succeed.
Ooh,
And
that's good.
that's, yeah, I mean, this is how it's true. It's unfortunate. You see people, and I feel like you, in this day and age, this is another thing I've talked about, because of technology, it is unfortunate because your learning curve needs to be higher than it was years ago, potentially just because from all the updates, like your phone changes how many times in a couple months with updates, like people get tired of that.
Sure.
And from the technology side, there's these constant changes that they didn't necessarily have prior to. So your learning curve has to be higher. So is the burnout going to be sooner? That's a whole different story. We're not
I
even.
think
That's
I
not
think
looking
we've
for.
already reached
Yeah.
burnout.
What's that?
I think we've already reached burnout.
Yeah.
You
You know
know,
what? You're
I,
right.
I, I
Yeah.
think I think we have. I could be wrong, but I feel as though we have. I think that's part of the reason why we have it when it comes to commercial cinema, Hollywood films. You see a pivot toward more authentic,
Yes.
um, narratives that are based in reality,
Yeah.
or some form of reality. Sinners was a great film by
Yes.
Ryan Coogler.
Very good.
And though it was fantasy, it was still based in a form of reality. Um, it still felt grounded, if you will. Um, where I mean, because of the last 10 years, the last decade, uh, we were swimming in a sea of escapist films,
Yeah.
escapist
Very much so.
content.
Yeah.
Not to say that those things, that content was bad or anything. I mean, some films are better than others, but it's like I there there are certain films of the past that I just don't feel uh, the hunger to revisit right now,
Yeah.
because I'm just tired of them. I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to
And I think
I
a lot of
want to
them are made
hear a
into safe
voice of.
avenues. Like they were made because they'd already done the work prior. That's why we had a lot of remakes and things like that. Like that already succeeded prior. So it was like a safe avenue for companies and the studios to like quickly make money.
Mhm.
And I don't know if was successful. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Sure, sure, but it's I think where we are nearing, um, it's uh, I'm going to quote the vice president right quick, where he says, things will get better, but it's going to be a bumpy road. I might be misquoting him, but his philosophy, the philosophy is the same. You know, it's
Yeah.
going to get better, but we just have to trudge through the mud for a little bit in order to uh, get to the grassy field, if you will. Um, and you know, help each other along the way as we do it. Um, so it's that's, you know, how I have been navigating this thing, and I think how, you know, uh, just be aware, be hungry for knowledge. Ultimately, be hungry for knowledge, and come up with your own solutions, um, and find a way to create without spending money. That's key right now. Um, I think. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's some really great words of wisdom, Neil. So I appreciate you sharing that. And somebody who's been in the industry as long as you have and has weathered those storms, I feel like those are really good, food for thought for those who are going to get into the industry or,
Mhm.
looking at that.
Mhm.
Um, and you've had some really great projects that you've worked on through that time frame, in between the ins and the outs, right? So let's talk about some of your really projects that you've gotten to work on.
Sure.
One of them is yours truly behind you. You got the Camp Hideaway right there. So
Yeah.
um, that's one of the ones that you wrote
Yeah.
mainly primarily. You were the primary script, right?
Yeah, I was one of the writers on it, and it was uh, it was truly an education. Um, I had been writing for uh, I had been writing for a few years prior to getting on board with the Camp Hideout project, and so when I got the call from Jason Brown, inviting me to develop the story. Um, it was, I mean, look, it's always, when you get that call, it's always a great call. Um, but, you know, in the process of developing a kids film, um, again, going back to the whole, you know, this industry is full of doubt. Um, you constantly are wondering, am I good enough? Am I developing content that resonates? Is this joke funny? Kind of stuff. And the you know, yes, it's great to hear from the producers. It's like, okay, this is good. This checks off. Moving forward, moving on. Let's get to the next page. Um, when I went to when Camp Hideout was showcased in the cinemas, I went to a showing. It wasn't the premiere. I just went to a random showing in Texas, I think, because I was working. Yeah, I was in Texas because I was working for the Austin Film Festival at the time, and um, the auditorium was full of kids, and when the movie started, they laughed at the jokes, they cried at the sad parts, they emotionally resonated with the narrative, and that in of itself was so surreal. I mean, it was, but what it did for me was it helped me go, okay, I hit the mark. I'm good. I don't have to doubt myself on whether, you know, I uh, developed a good product or not, because the audience that we built the film for emotionally engaged with it, and so it was just such a remarkable experience to have that. Um, and but the producers of that film with Cold Heart Studios, great guys. You know, they have a fantastic number of projects on their slate, and the you know, uh, reading scripts for them, evaluating scripts for them whenever they send them over. And you know, it's just, again, a process for me to stay connected and uh, learn how better to develop um, particular projects to fit a particular brand, and you know, shape narratives that resonate with um, particular audience members to their core on what they value and what they find to be important in the world, and whatnot. So, because I mean, that's really why you write stories. You know, you're trying to, as the author, you're trying to put something out into the world that um, is hopefully beneficial for people. And if they're able to grab onto that theme that you have hopefully clearly demonstrated through the narrative, then they'll be able to apply it to their own lives. For example, um, stories that I resonate with, stories that I gravitate to, are all about entrepreneurial underdogs. Seemingly everyday people who uh, strive at touching their stars. Going after their dream, and when the world hears about them in the pursuit of this, they go, "You're crazy. You're never going to do it. You have promised turmoil and frustration and problems along the way, and everything is working against you. Don't waste your time." But what's wonderful about those types of stories for me is, yes, the journey is terrific, and whether they achieve the goal or not is fantastic. But really, what's important with those stories of entrepreneurial underdogs is how the individual transforms along the way. What is it about themselves or the world that they learn that they didn't know prior, that helps them to become a better person uh, along the voyage, is what is really the true treasure of these stories. And because that's my story. I'm I'm an entrepreneurial underdog. I'm not legacy. I'm not wealthy. Uh, I chose a career path that is very unpredictable, and has uh, potentially promised failure within it. And I wake up every day going, okay, how can I get closer to my goal uh, today, and apply the knowledge that I learned yesterday in order to get there. And the thing is, it's like, even if I don't get there, I know the type of person that I will become tomorrow is going to be a better version of me than I am today because of it. So yeah, that's sorry, I went on a little rant there, but that's I learned that about myself in the process of working on Camp Hideout.
I love that. And I think that, like, what you're talking about too, speaks to a lot of the audience. Like, I know
Mm.
you're talking about speaking to your audience, and that was the one thing, you want to know your target audience, right, when you're writing, so that you know how to get to that. What is this joke? Is this joke going to portray to the kids? Is it going to go to parents? What is it going to, what is my audience? That's why, like, a lot of kid films, you have to go to a wide audience, because parents take kids to films, so it's like, who are you going to reach? And I think this film that you like, the Camp Hideout, is adorable. It does have those vibes of, the Home Alone, very comedic. It's just really
Yeah.
sweet. And you nailed it with it, being able to create that connection to your audience that way,
Mhm.
and having that underdog mentality. I feel like so many kids, especially, can vibe with that. When you're in high school, everybody feels like they're the underdog, right? You just feel like that you're just that beat up person. And I mean, maybe not. There might be some, but for the most part, like, I feel like that's the typical vibe. And that kind of speaks to the new film that you are working with right now with Richard Kerner and
Mhm. Mhm.
Race Films. So we can talk a little bit about that. That's one of your
Sure.
newer projects that is coming up in the works. And it's called All In. It's a film about, overcoming a lot to get to not just professionals, like not just sports, but like professional NFL. And, what does that look like? And then going into being coaching and things like that. So
Mhm. Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about that new project that you're working on.
Yeah, yeah. It's a faith-based football biopic of Chase Blackburn, the linebacker of the New York Giants back in 2012. He was at that time, as the story goes, newly married and living the high life and on top of the world. And then out of nowhere, he's cut. And so he goes on this journey of identity, the loss of identity, this rites of passage, if you will, of trying to figure out who I am if I'm not the person I thought I was. And so it's through the spiritual mentorship through his wife, that he ultimately learns. Spoilers. He ultimately learns that he finds solace in being a man of God first, a husband, father second, and a football player third. And they downsize. He and his wife. He becomes a middle school math teacher, um, and then once they find that point of solace, point of peace, he gets a call. They invite him back on the team, and he ultimately wins Super Bowl 42. And what's beautiful about this is, whenever you watch the any Super Bowl, whoever ends up winning scoring the winning touchdown, they always run to the team and celebrate with the team in the huddle and everything. As per the story, Chase runs past his team and he grabs his wife, he grabs his kids, and he hugs them. And she's like, his wife, why are you over here? Go be with your team. You need to celebrate with them. And he goes, no, you are my team. He even though he's decked out in football gear and he's back on the field, he's doing what he's born to do. He still, even through all that, realizes and acknowledges that, he's not a football player. He is a man of God. He's a husband and father. It's just a beautiful story of, one who is lost is able to find their way by learning how to listen to God. And, I personally relate to that story. Early in my career, in my mid-20s, I lost my faith. I grew up in a very Christian household. And I didn't become an agnostic or an atheist or anything. I just stopped practicing. I stopped believing, if you will. And I'll share this. My hope for every Christian is that at some point in their life, they lose sight of God too, because it was through losing him, I was able to find him again. And my relationship with Christ is stronger than ever. And I had to hit bottom in order and become desperate enough to go, okay, I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to learn how to listen. And I found or discovered my identity through that struggle. And so that's how, when I was presented this project, All In, I went, I have no idea what it's like to be on a football field. I have no idea what it's like to have, that much money. Don't know what it's like to be married because I'm not married, but being able to hear Chase's story and look at my experiences, plural, I was able to go, wow, this guy is me. And, it's so, yeah, I think it's just a beautiful story. And, Richard has, tagged me along with Pooja Gupta, who is a producer and professor at UNCSA, to help him get this project off the ground. And so, as soon as the tide comes in with the industry, then hopefully we'll be able to make that happen.
Yeah, it'll come. You guys will get. We'll just keep knocking doors, right?
Yeah, well, that's why you got to bloody your knuckles.
That's exactly right.
You got to bloody your knuckles. Because ironically, this industry it's somewhat hypocritical, where it's like the advertisement on the billboard is like, pursue your dreams, follow your dreams, go after your dreams, which is in a sense very enlightening and positive in forward progression. It gives this invitation, this eluded invitation that things will happen. And yet when you're in it, it's it's just filled with rejection. It's filled with no's. It's filled with, and it's not rejection and not no's on a uh, destructive standpoint. It's like it, I
Business.
was I was pitching Hallmark a few months back, and they wanted me to develop. I got one of my contacts within it invited me to develop 6 authentic feature film ideas, and 3 Christmas and 3 rom-com, and now we're down to 1. They they passed on 5 through a series of months. They passed on the 5 ideas, and now we're down to 1. And we're like in the waiting process of whether they're going to pass or proceed with this idea, this
Right.
one final idea. So you never know, and it's not like they passed on the ideas because they didn't like them. They
Right.
passed on the ideas because at this point in time, with their company and their brand, these ideas just weren't a good fit. So you just, okay, moving on. No feelings hurt. Let's figure out, okay, what else can we do with this? How do we pivot accordingly? And so yeah, it's filled with rejection, but it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes when you're told no on a particular project or entity that you're trying to be involved with, sometimes you're dodging a bullet, you know, and
Yeah.
then it's through the process of finding another alternative that you find to be much more beneficial than the original thing you were going after. So sometimes rejection is good.
Yeah, it does. It makes you stronger for the next go around. And, each studio has their own like pivots that they're going for right now. And I feel like
Mhm.
talking about pivots, I mean, Hallmark is definitely doing a lot of that. They're branching out into all kinds of different avenues, even to home improvement. And it's interesting to see them do that to the reality shows and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I wish you guys the best of luck with that. And
Thank you.
the fact that you've gotten 6, even down to 1, like they didn't say no to all of them, you still have it in, but
Yeah.
yeah, you still, it's like that nail biter. You're just like, is it
Hmm.
a yes or no? Like, are we moving forward? And sometimes it can take forever to finally get even an interest to let's go to the next level. And then you're going to the
Hmm.
next team that could still say no. And you're
Hmm.
never final until you get on that screen and it is watching time, like viewing time, and you're like, wow, we did it. So, but congratulations for that. And
Oh, well, thank you.
yeah,
But it's largely just being affiliated with all um, the right people.
exactly.
It's I
Overwhelming.
sure have I worked with some. Uh, there are certain people that I probably wouldn't want to work again with. But I, with that, um, I've worked with some really terrific people also, and I find that those terrific people have become friends, and it's right now, like I keep seeing this in I keep hearing this in the zeitgeist. Um, it's not it's all about reputation. you know your reputation, how you treat others within your sphere of influence. um, that's your brand, and that is the thing that allows you to get recognized by others that you don't even know are paying attention to you, um, and which could serve very well down the future, could pay out dividends. So it's just, even when you have a bad experience with someone, I find that being um, maintaining a safe line, but being genuine, being sincere, being honest, and um, going into a working relationship with a sense of professionalism and uh, willing to work. is what's needed. Um, it's just I, I'll share this much. I attended an event at Trilith recently where I met Dan Cathy, and I asked him, in the industry as it is currently, do you find that your reputation exceeds your skill set as a professional? And he kind of like took a beat, and said, those two go hand in hand. I'm not gonna. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but he goes, you need to make sure that you enter the room uh, truthfully and honestly, uh, but also be willing to showcase your skill set at the highest level that it is currently, and show that the people that you're working or potentially working with, that skill set is growing, that you're taking an active effort to um, to become better at your craft than how you once were. So, he said that, when he's in Chick-fil-A, he has a name tag. It says Dan Cathy, 50 years of service in training, because even though, he's like, he owns it, he's still learning. He's still going about every day learning something new, and how to be better than, as a businessman, and as a person, and as a man of God, how to be better. And I just think that's a beautiful, beautiful tactic to have with life and work. Um, so yeah.
It is a beautiful tactic to have with life and work. It's really important to have in order to survive in life. And I think it's just admirable when
Mm.
people that are really big have that mindset, and they're just like, I remember one time when Corey was, we were talking, he's like, oh, wait, what's that? So can you tell me a little bit about that? And I was like, this is somebody who's been in the industry for over 30 years, right? And so it was kind of like, but the fact that he was that humble to be like, hey, what is that? Tell me about that. And it was like a newer thing that was coming out. And it wasn't like he brushed it off. He was interested. He was hungry. It was so admirable. And so many people absolutely adored him
Mm.
because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally 100% there, Neil, and appreciate you sharing all of this great information. And we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, we want to find out where we can find to work with you.
Yeah.
And then also, what are some last words of wisdom? I know you've been spilling the words of wisdom today. That's been great. So anybody who's, listening in on this, you guys are definitely blessed. But yeah, any final parting thoughts? And then I got to pop your website up here too for anybody
Sure.
who's watching this.
Well, where you can find me is, on my website, cneildavenport.com. And I also am very active on LinkedIn. So feel free to message me there, connect with me there. I've more recently got involved with Medium, this blog platform. I don't know. I've found it in me that I work on monthly blogs about things that I've learned or experienced, and hopefully some will be helpful to other people navigating this industry. And something to leave you with. Uh, there's so much. I would say, despite where you are within this industry, um, become financially literate, and go at building a game plan on how to get out of debt. Because the thing is, debt is like the destroyer of dreams. And again, another thing that nobody tells you is that these dreams that you explore are expensive. So if I think that would be number one, above all. If you can find a way to get out of debt so that you can pursue your dream, that's the first hurdle to get over. Yeah. Yeah. And as you can see, it's like, being brutally honest. You see, on my LinkedIn page, it says open to work, because that's where I'm at right now. Um, that's where a lot of people are at right now.
Yep.
Um, and but again, it's just in that being willing to help each other that we'll be able to, get that little that logo off of our profile, um, and whatnot. So, yeah, yeah, that's what I think that's what I would leave you with is become financially literate.
Yeah, that's really smart. It's definitely something that is probably not very harped on in the industry very much. And you just think, oh, we'll spend this money on this project and we'll make this big score kind of a thing later. And there's no guarantee of anything except of the uncertainty, right? And so that can really screw with you. So the fact that you have survived the industry, you're financially stable, I mean, that's huge, Neil. A lot of people aren't like that in the industry. So, um, yeah, words of wisdom are great there. Appreciate
Well,
that and
well,
appreciate you taking
and
the time.
yeah. Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate you having me on, and you know, being able to spew some words of wisdom, and hopefully, you know, whatever I say resonates with you. Take that and run with it.
Appreciate that. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. Next up, we're going to be having the head of MGM Amazon Studios post production, former head. He'll be talking to us a little bit about corporate production. So you definitely want to tune in for that. It's going to be pretty exciting. But so excited. Thank you, Neil, and wishing you a lot of luck for the future and prayers and things as well as, uncertainty continues, but you got a good head on your shoulders and you're pushing through.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.